Today, we're going to be talking about seasonality, and seasonality is one of my favorite parts about trading just because I find it so interesting that, when it comes to a lot of these assets that we're tracking, a lot of really popular, highly traded things on the market, they just perform over and over and over again the same way month after month, year after year. And something about that to me is just so interesting. And that's not to say that every single day or every week or every month even is the exact same. But what you'll notice historically is, if you were to take a particular asset, I can use pound dollar for example. If we were to look at pound dollar in the month of January over the last 10 years, you would notice that typically speaking, it trades a certain way in the month of January. From January 1st to January 31st, you will notice that almost every single month over the last 10 years, it always ends up trading higher as the month goes on. So that to me, I just wonder, why is it? What is it about the month of January? What is it about these particular assets in this particular time or month that makes it trade the same all the time? I don't know. I find it really interesting, and we have some really cool and easy to understand seasonality stuff here in the Edge Finder. So we're going to be looking at that today. And if you see anything that you like in this video, don't forget that you can find all of this stuff down in the links in the description below, as well as on our website, a1trading.com. We have a lot of free, and I mean that 100% free, useful trading content on a1trading.com. And again, the Edge Finder is a super useful trading tool too. So if you like this, you can get it for a discounted price when you use promo code A1YT at checkout. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and just dive on in to some more of the seasonality stuff. So you'll notice down here that we actually have 3 different seasonality tabs. We have our seasonality scanner, this is like the broad overview of all the seasonality stuff that we track in the Edge Finder. But then we can get more detailed with it. We can actually look at seasonality monthly and seasonality weekly as well. So let's just start with the broad look and just kind of get an understanding of what we're looking at here. So it really is pretty easy to understand. We have all of our assets listed here, and we see 2 different charts. This is a weekly graph or chart right here, and then the monthly chart right here. And the other nice thing about this is it doesn't just show you this week, but it will also show you next week or this month and next month. So for example, the VIX here is at the top of both of these charts. The volatility index, if you're unfamiliar with what the VIX is. So this week historically, it trades up about 1.4%. Next week, however, a little bit bigger than that, almost 12% gain next week historically. And same thing this month, historically speaking, it's at a positive 7.46%. And next month, even higher than that, 10%, 10.65. The VIX is something that moves around a lot. It is the volatility index, so it is a bit jumpy. So not surprising that there's some really big numbers there. But like earlier, I see the pound dollar here is something that I was using as an example. In the beginning of the video, we can see that this week, historically, the pound dollar trades up about 0.42%. Next week, just kind of a break-even week, about 0.15%. So not a ton of movement there. And then we can find the pound dollar right here. This month, historically, it trades up about 0.5%. So nice little move there, historically speaking, in January. But February, on the other hand, historically, not as positive as a month, down 0.17%. So kind of break even, but a little bit to the downside. So that's a basic reading, or the basic way to read this big overall chart here. But if we break it down monthly, then we can actually look at each month, all 12 months, for any asset that we're tracking in the Edge Finder. And we were already using pound dollar as a example, so I'll just stick with pound dollar here. And we can see that Right now, the current year performance it's actually down just slightly, down 0.17%. But over the last 10 years historically, it does trade up 0.52%. Again, that's taking day 1 of January to day 31 of January, the 31st, over the last 10 years. So 2013 to the present day, what did it do? What percentage up from day 1 to where it ended? What did it do in the month of January? And again, historically over 10 years, tends to trade higher.
We have 4 brand new indicators built for TradingView. Introducing the momentum, extension zones, trend projections, and volume spikes indicators. All 4 indicators work on every TradingView chart and time frame. You can easily see shifts in bullish or bearish momentum. Look and see if price is being overbought or oversold, which could cause a quick reversal. Automatically get a trend line that shows the true trend, bullish trend, and bearish trend based on the most recent market data. Get notified instantly of big spikes in volume to help you find breakouts. All 4 are available now at a1trading.com and can get set up in just a few minutes. Go check out our brand new line of TradingView indicators today.
However, in February, not so much. And in this current year, not so much. We'll actually look at the chart here in just a second, and we can look back at a few different, we can look at this year and last year and a few different things here. But yeah, and we can do that again for any asset that we track here. So like here's just the dollar in general. The dollar in general in January typically 0.15%, but this year it's actually up about 1%. But let's go back to pound dollar, and actually let's go ahead and jump into the weekly. So the weekly is interesting. The weekly is interesting because we actually do have every single week of the year, all 52 weeks laid out here for you to look at. Let's see, I've definitely passed pound dollar. I'll just search it. There we go. So now that we got pound dollar pulled up here, we can take a look at our weekly readings, and we're in the month of January, so this makes it super easy for us because we can kind of just look at the beginning of the chart here. So what I see here is, typically speaking, the first week it trades up, second week it trades down, and the third and fourth week it trades up. And then by the 5th week we're into February. But interestingly though, we can actually see our performance this year. This red line is actually what price has done this year, and so far it's done pretty much the opposite of historically what it does. So in the first week it traded down, in the second week it traded back up before trading back down, and now here we are in the 4th week of the month and we're trading back up. And again, historically speaking, I know that in February it didn't trade quite as high as it does in January, and that makes sense because I can see a big move to the downside here. These bars aren't, too big. Like these in January look bigger than these in February. We have this massive, bar to the downside, and then we have some more over here as we get into March and stuff. So it seems like February and March, in fact, just by looking at this, I would assume March is a negative month for pound dollar. February and March. Yeah, March is a big negative month historically for pound dollar. So why don't we take a look at some of that? Let's take a look at the actual chart. We'll look at this year and last year and just kind of compare the two, even though we could go all the way back. Maybe we will just go all the way back to 2013 just for fun to take a look at that. But yeah, let's take a look at the chart and let's look at January, February, and March and a little bit of the historical data and see if we're getting kind of the same stuff here. So here is pound dollar on the daily chart. And so far in 2024, we've definitely had some movement, but it's very ranged, right? We haven't had any clear breakouts or anything, just super choppy on the daily chart. But let's look at the actual dates. So this day right here, this massive red candle right here, was the first trading day of the year, Tuesday, January 4th, and this was an awful day for pound dollar. and then we started trading higher, right? But on the 5th, we can actually see, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we jump to 8. So Friday the 5th, this was the first week. This was the first trading week, right? So we started here and we finished here. So that makes sense. That adds up with, what we saw in our weekly, where we didn't really perform in the first week. We started off down low, but then in the second week, we had some improvement, right? And that's what we see. So here's the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And so we started right here, right? And then we finished up here. So not a huge move, but a positive move nonetheless. So you can kind of see, and again, we started January right down here. This is where we started. This was the first day. So we're starting here. And we're up higher than that right now. So even though January has not been a huge month for pound dollar, so far it has been a positive month. And in fact, even this 4th week, we'll look at the most recent stuff, historically is a positive week. And so far it says that it's been a positive week. And it has, just barely. We'll need to see how this candle closes today, right? Because this is a kind of incomplete data. But we started right here on Monday on this little candle. And we had a pretty good day up until Wednesday. And since Wednesday, we have come down a bit, but it's still early in the day on Thursday. So we still have time, and Friday, of course, to see if we can turn the rest of this week around. But yeah, let's look at some of the historical data as well. So why don't we go all the way back to 2023 and check out what we were doing in January. In fact, January, February, and March. We can take a look at all three. So here is the first trading day of 2023. Started off pretty rough, but then we had a big boom. And there is January. And there is January 31st right there. That candle right there. So where we started right here after closing this first candle on the first trading day of January 2nd, we finished all the way up here. So that's clearly a very positive month. January, very positive month for pound dollar. February, historically, not a great month for pound dollar. So let's see what happened in February. February 1st was good. And then after that, this was most likely because of some news, but not good news, just tanked the pound dollar, who had a nice little bit of a rebound here, but it just was not enough at all to keep up with this downward momentum. And there we go. February 28th closed right here. So price started up here and closed all the way down here. Clearly a negative month for pound dollar in February. That adds up with what we see here on the weekly. First couple weeks of the year after we get through February, usually not good for pound dollar. February and March. This is about February and March right here. Monthly, February and March, historically not great for pound dollar. Let's go on to March. Well, just by looking at this right here, I can already tell that March in 2023, even though historically it's a very bad month for the pound dollar, not last year. Here's March 1st, and then we don't even really need to. I mean, this is pretty obvious. Yeah, it started off a little bit rough, but then absolutely exploded in March. So what we've seen is seasonality can be a very accurate tool and a very useful tool for predicting longer term trends on certain assets. What we saw this year in 2024 is that so far January has lined up with what we see in the monthly chart, not so much the weekly, but in the monthly. And in last year's data, 2023, January and February lined up exactly with what we see both in the weekly and the monthly chart. March, however, was our outlier from last year, 2023. So that's going to wrap up seasonality. Again, I think that this is such an interesting thing because as we've seen today, some things just historically tend to trend the same way over time. And, you know, there's lots of different reasons that can go into that. But the most important thing is that you pay attention to it so that you can kind of have an understanding that I know that historically, something trends a certain way in this month. So if it is currently trending that way, and it looks like a strong, reasonable entry to you, then that's definitely something that you should, keep your eye on for potential entries because, again, I think that seasonality can be a very, very useful tool in your trading arsenal if you don't already use seasonality in your trading. Again, if you want the Edge Finder for yourself, you can find it in the link down in the description below and use promo code A1YT for a discount at checkout. Did you know we do a live trading show Monday through Friday with guests from all over the world? To get notified when we go live, click the bell button next to the subscribe button or check in at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have helpful, free content in the description below and on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you tomorrow.